Welcome to Behind the Cusp, a podcast diving deep into the layers of self-growth, inner work, and transformation. I'm your host, Marissa Mead, and after 15 years as a digital creator, I'm sharing my raw, unfiltered journey of healing and self-discovery to walk alongside you in yours. Together, we'll dive deep into the conversations that matter most, uncovering what it means to truly evolve from the inside out. This is where you elevate into transformation. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin. Hello, my friends. We are back for episode 5. I think at this point I can probably stop saying the episode number at the beginning of each episode, but whatever, it's fine. Before we get started for today's episode topic, which I'm really excited to dive into, I wanted to just kind of give a little update, touch base, pulse check, if you will. The last couple weeks has been so crazy. I didn't have an episode last week, and let me just say that starting a podcast or, starting anything new is always such a journey, right? You're starting something new and you have an idea of what you want it to look like or what you want it to be or how it's going to turn out, and maybe some of those things happen and then other things it kind of shifts and evolves and changes as it goes. And honestly, that's what this podcast journey has been for me so far. It was actually a year ago right now when I really started to have this strong pull towards creating a podcast. But I had taken the year off of work and really needed to hustle and grind and basically make money because I had no income for 6 months. And so I knew that that was going to be my focus for the second half of the year, but had this podcast just brewing in the background. And then at the start of the year, I really started to kind of shift my focus to the podcast and dreaming up what I wanted and had a lot of things in place for it, and basically ended up not doing any of that and moving in a totally different direction, which I'm really glad I did because it's been a joy for me to experience every aspect of the podcast. But the funny thing is that I was like, okay, I'm doing episodes every week and recording and all this and that. And honestly, you guys, I've realized that this podcast is truly a reflection of me and my own journey and self-growth and healing, but also even just the actual place that I'm at in life and what I'm walking through and going through and experiencing. And so it's okay if every week looks different. So that being said, a couple weeks ago, I had told you guys, I inadvertently didn't have a podcast up because my stuff was being shipped back to Connecticut. And then last week was Amazon Prime and Nordstrom sale and all these things happening. And it's one of the busiest weeks of the year for me with my business. The second highest grossing week, if not more than even Black Friday. So it's kind of like an all hands on deck. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to push out a podcast, and I didn't. And I've realized that that's okay. It's okay if I'm not pushing out content here every single week. I think overall, it's just like working out. You are committing to a lifestyle, and you're not going to be doing these extreme things every single day, but it's a consistency over time that matters. And I think that's what I've settled into with the podcast, and it feels really, really good because this is a long game for me. This is something that I have a huge vision for. Also just know innately within my soul what it's going to be. And so I'm not really worried about the week to week production. It's more about the overall vision. So there's a little nugget for you. Take with it what you'd like and apply it to your own life however you'd like. So that being said, I'm actually back in Florida this week. My boyfriend and I have a concert that we have been planning to go to for the last 6 or 7 months, and it's for one of his favorite bands. They're on a world tour based in Australia. So I flew back here after a hellish travel day yesterday to get here, and that was an experience in and of itself. But I'm here and I made it. It's downpouring outside, so I'm wondering if that's going to pick up on the mic at all in this room. But summer in Florida for you. So I'm here in Florida, excited to be here for the week, but I did bring my mic with me because I knew I did not want to skip another week. I'm okay with going like week to week, I think, but definitely not 2, 3, 4 weeks of a break in between unless it feels really right. That's another thing, that something that I move deeply in is how something feels, and when I really feel impressioned to do something or not do something or whatever. And so even with the podcast, I'm not in a place, at least right now, where I can crank out and record 3 or 4 episodes a day because I'm really moving intentionally and in flow with what I want to bring to you guys, with the episode topics and titles and all of that. It's not something where I'm just like pulling things out of thin air. These are topics that I'm really deeply like digging into. I have a running list of things in my head, but I don't just pounce on one each week. I really am being intentional with them and what feels right, and kind of reading the pulse of what do these girls and women and even men listening need, and moving with that and following my intuition or my tug of what do they need out there right now. And so this week's episode, I knew I needed to record, so I packed my microphone, just the microphone, not all my other stuff that I have for recording, in my suitcase for Florida, and I was like, well, hopefully it works out. So I hope the audio on this comes out good. You guys will have to let me know. I normally have my iPad with some notes or little touch points that I want to go over, and I'm sitting with my phone here in front of me because I don't have my iPad. I've traveled very, very light when I come back to Florida for a short amount of time because I don't really need a lot of things. I have everything here. So it's like my makeup bag, my computer, my chargers, and that's it. I have my phone with some notes and just kind of So I have my phone here with some notes, and we are just going to dive into this topic today of identity versus roles. On that note, let's open with a little kind of question or reflection. Wherever you are in your day, I kind of love saying this because I just want to make you all feel so welcomed in this space wherever you are in your day. If you are making kids lunch, if you are on your drive to work, if you're on your drive home, if you're out for your workout walk of the day, if you are sitting on the beach, maybe you're on vacation this week. Wherever you are at in your day and your week, whenever you're pressing play on this, take a minute and let's kind of open the space for this topic. Something is going to land different for each of us. We're all going to glean something different out of this. And open your heart, your mind to whatever the message that wants to come through today for you is. And let's think about this question in the back of your head as you're listening to this whole episode. If you were not a job title, a relationship status, a caregiver, a wife, a mom, a sister, a daughter, a cousin, who would you be? And who are you without all of the titles and the roles? This is what we're going to dive into today. So take a deep breath. Exhale out all the stress, the tension, whatever you might be feeling right now. Let's just take a moment to set everything aside. All the stress of the day, the stress of yesterday, maybe something you're feeling worried or anxious about, or something that's kind of up in the air right now. Set it all aside and take a deep breath. The titles, the tasks, the expectations, the way you show up for others, the fixer, the achiever, the caregiver, the one who holds it all together, all of those things are roles that we are carrying. And I want us to just set them aside right now. Now, let's all ask ourselves gently, who am I without the pressure to perform, provide, or care for? Who am I when I'm not being useful or productive or checking things off a list, and I am just being? There is a version of you that exists outside of all of the roles that you have and that you play and that you hop in and out of, And not that those roles are not important, because they are, but they are not the full truth, the full expression of who you are. Now, realize that you are allowed to have an identity that isn't rooted in productivity, being needed, accomplishing things at work or in your house. You are allowed to be someone who is soft, evolving, undefined, and anything in between. You are allowed to be someone who is a valuable human just because you exist. You don't need to check off the boxes. You don't need to perform to be valuable. You are valuable because you are living. Today, this episode is a space for you to remember who that is. I want you to really tune into deeply the essence of who you are. Maybe that feels very far away for you right now. Maybe you've gone through major life shifts and transitions and you feel like you've lost who you are. Maybe you are in a place that you are asking yourself, did I ever really even know who that person is or was? Whatever space you find yourself in, today we're going to dig deep to remember who that is. And you may not leave this episode remembering every aspect of that person, but I hope that this episode will at least give you a glimpse and a glimmer into beginning to remember who that person is, and a nudge for you to explore and carve out the time and the joy of knowing who you are. Before we go into all of those things, I want to really define the difference between roles and identity, because there is a huge difference. And I think especially in our world right now, which obviously I guess I don't really have anything to compare it to. It's not like I can go back and compare it to 1920 because I wasn't around then. But the roles that we have right now are very prevalent in our society of how we are defining who we are. Roles are external assignments. They are the external things that we take on in our life. So here are some examples: being a mom, being a wife, being a friend, an entrepreneur, a daughter, a dog mom, a cat mom, a realtor, a homeowner. All of those things are roles that you take on in life. They're the ways that we serve, support, care for, work, and show up in the world. And roles are also not things that you were just paid for. And that's kind of why I went into more of the definitions that in the roles that we play in our life that are not things that are all career related. So obviously all career related things are also roles that we play in life. But I didn't really dive into those because I feel like that's already a given. And maybe sometimes we don't think of those other things as roles. We think of them as who we are. But these are all assignments for us in life. They are not definitions, and they are not defining who we are as an individual person. Our roles shift, change, end, start, restart. They may ebb and flow in life, and they often depend on who is around us, what is needed from us, or what phase we are at in life at that time. Now, identity is something that is internal. It is who you are when no one else is asking anything of you. It is your essence. It is your truth, your energy, your inner knowing, your personality, the aspects of you that make you, you. It does not change based on your job, your relationship status, your family, your productivity, or where you live. Your identity just is, because it is who you were born to be and are, beneath all of the layers of titles and roles and projections and even your own self-image. When we over-identify with our roles in life, we shift away from knowing who we are. We shift away from really being grounded in our own identity. And ultimately, we risk losing touch with the deepest part of us that exists beyond the performance and the checklist and the doing and all the schedules of our daily life. When we root into our identity, on the other hand, the part of us that is real and steady and soulful, the heartbeat of us and our essence, we move through life with clarity and not just obligation. Can you feel that and sense that? Like, your roles require obligations from you. You know, like if you were a mom, you are obligated to feed your children. That's a given. If you have a dog or a cat, you are obligated to get them outside, take them for a walk, give them their food, whatever. And the list goes on and on. If you are a sister, you are obligated to have a relationship with your family that you're growing up with in the same house. All of these things are obligations. But when you are rooted in who you are and your identity, you can move through life with clarity in decision making, in boundary setting, in what you want to do and what you want to be involved in, activities, hobbies, even the people you associate with, because you are clear on who you are. Roles can and will shift. They will change your entire life. Right now, every single one of us that's listening, no matter when we're listening, all of us have different roles. And I guarantee that our roles have all changed within the last year or two. Maybe you just went from being a student to now being in the workforce and your role is totally different. Maybe you just bought a home. Now you stepped into the role of homeowner. Maybe you just became a mom, or maybe you just became a dad. Now your role has totally shifted. Our roles are always going to shift. Now, in 20 years, when your kids move out of the house, your role is again going to shift. See, our roles shift and change. When you retire, if you quit your job, if you change your job, all of these things are going to shift. But our identity is who we were born to be. It is the root of who we are. And those roots go far down and deep. Those are not things that we can change. They're innate to us. We sadly kind of live in a world now that praises us for how well we perform, or how much we do, or how much we accomplish, or how much money we make, or material things of what we have or what we own, how many titles we carry, how many letters are after our name, DRSMRNPU, like there's so many things. Like, we get praised for all of these things. And then somehow along the way, we started to believe and shift into the belief that our roles are who we are. I think one of the biggest indicators of this is in people's Instagram bios. This has always fazed me when I go to someone's Instagram bio and it says, mom to 3 littles, mom to 2 dogs, 1 cat, wife, and it has all these roles that they're defined by. Maybe they're a doctor, maybe that, like, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't tell me about who you are, right? Like, when you go to someone's page, it should be who they are and not what their roles are. And there's a huge difference. But this has become something that's so normal because we're all defining ourselves by our roles and not by who we are. Just like who we are and how we exist and show up in the world. It's always so much more interesting when you land on a page, again, using that Instagram as an example, and someone is like, I am a collector of vintage denim, and like they're giving these things that they are interested in, maybe their personality, like your number one source for comedy relief, or like I'm happiest by the ocean, or something about them that is just about them as a person and not about who they are, what they're doing, or what their roles are in life. So think about it for a second. When someone asks you, oh, tell me about yourself, a lot of times the question comes out, oh, what do you do? Whatever. And we kind of answer again with the roles. Oh, I'm an owner of this company, or I'm a founder of this. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Oh, I take care of so-and-so. Or, like I'm now a caretaker for a parent. Or again, all of these things shift with time and age and phase of life. But typically when someone says like, oh, what about you? Like, what do you do? Whatever. We are defining those things with roles. And again, all of those things are roles, and they are not our essence. They reflect what we do and not who we are. So to that point, when a role ends, because we identify so much with our roles in life, we feel completely undone. We feel completely lost. And we feel like a part of us no longer exists. But it's because we were identifying so much with the role and not knowing who we were or are in our own identity. So when your role shifts from one role to the next, there's this period of struggle in the transition because we identify so much with the previous role. Now, if we are rooted in our essence, we are rooted in who we are and what our identity is and what we like and what makes us happy and what lights us up and what is the heartbeat of us, then our role is not something that's defining us, and we're always grounded because we are in our own essence and in our own self. So when we over-identify with a role, we risk losing sight of ourself that is beneath it. And I think this is happening more and more and more in our world today because of how much emphasis is placed on our roles. We have a hard time when our life moves from one role to the next. What ends up happening is burnout or emotional exhaustion, an identity crisis. It brings up all of these things where we feel like our world is falling apart. Oftentimes these things, the burnout, the exhaustion, the identity crisis, if you will, these things show up when we've poured so much of ourselves into a role that there's nothing left behind it. There isn't an identity there. This is where we need to come back to who we are. This is the reminder for us. This episode is the reminder for us to come back to who we are and to know what our true essence is. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many roles you may identify for yourself right now. It doesn't matter if you feel like you have no identity right now. That's okay. Because now you're becoming aware, and now you can move into a place of knowing your identity and not identifying with the roles, but identifying with who you are. You are allowed to exist beyond the usefulness. You are allowed to be someone even when you are not being everything to everyone else. Let's make sure that clocked there. You are allowed to be someone even when you are not being everything to everyone else. That's a lot to take in and realize, especially if we are someone who's identified with our role for so long. And I think sometimes it's also easier for us to identify with certain roles than other roles. And so maybe sometimes we have a lot of roles, but we identify more with one than the other. And even then, when a role shifts, we're put into this feeling of everything's a blender because it's shifting and changing around us, and we like one role over the other more or whatever. I also really feel that when we step into different roles in our life, play a big part in how much we identify with that role. So hear me out. Everyone has a very different life path, right? And this is something I'm going to dive into in another episode because I want to talk about life path and self-discovery and timelines and all of that, and deconstructing even like societal timelines for life. But that's like a whole other completely different topic and episode to come. But, I'm 35. I've never been married. I don't have any kids. And so my 20s was truly spent discovering a lot about myself. And I didn't have to step into the role of wife or the role of mother. Now, if I had jumped into that role in my early 20s, let's say, then my life and kind of my overall identity would probably look really different, because maybe I wouldn't have had the same time or the same kind of space, if you will, to really give myself that identity and kind of self-exploration of my own essence that I had, because my time would have been spent in the role of wife or in the role of mother, or even like in a different role of workplace. And I don't want to pigeonhole it into wife and mother, but I think as a woman, those are typically two of the main roles that we take on outside of a job, if not before the job. Like wife, mother, those are the two top roles that we take on as a woman. And so I look at people that I know that have been married since they were in their early 20s. And this is zero shade absolutely to them, because again, everyone's life path is different. We all choose different things. But also, I do see such a stark difference in the identity that some of these women have or don't have. And even have felt judgment sometimes in the past from these women, because they can't understand how or why or whatever that I am the way I am, or choosing the things that I choose. And ultimately it comes down to, I live my life so deeply rooted in my own identity because I've gotten deep into that identity. And that's the driving force for all of my decisions and how I live my life ultimately. Your identity and your roles, as those roles shift in your life, there's always going to be an adjustment period that kind of challenges you, if you will, to return back to that identity or to remain grounded in the identity. So let me flip the situation around entirely. If I had been married and, had several kids in my 20s, and right now had a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old or something like that, like let's just give this like a wild scenario, then it doesn't mean I don't have an identity, because that's the path that my life took. But the expression of that, or even the expression of my role, would look totally different than it is now, right? The overall message or point that I'm trying to drive home here is our stage in life will drastically affect how much we identify with a role, and maybe even hinder how we are able to express our identity in that season if we are not already fully expressed in it. That's a big concept. Maybe go back and re-listen to that. Like hit the 15-second back button and re-listen to that. And so as your roles shift and you're deep in the trenches of one role over the other, you want to have your identity be secure so that you can easily return to it. Because when you're in the thick of a season, if you're in the thick of newlywed season and really, struggling to integrate your life in that aspect, because let's be honest, merging your life with another person is not all sunshine and rainbows every second of the day. And same thing with becoming a mom. Absolutely, you love your child to death, but it's not sunshine and rainbows every single day. And so when you are in the thick of these seasons, when you are in the thickness of the transition of these seasons, the important thing is to be able to lean back into the identity of who you are outside of the role. And if you haven't already done the work, or you aren't sure of what that is, then you're going to have to discover it in order to return to it. So let's turn down all the noise and all the distraction of the timelines and the roles and the expectations. Because let's be honest, we're all from very different paths, from very different walks of life. The roles that we play may be different because of that. The timelines may be different because of that. And the expectations may be different because of that. And so turn down all of that and return back to you. Take a moment to ask yourself, right now, this is how you can return back to you. If you're in the thick of it, if you're sitting here like my head is spinning, I have no idea what's my identity. I've been taking care of kids for 15 years and I just feel lost. I see you and I affirm you today. I want you to know, if you, no matter what your role is, no matter where you're struggling in a role, I see you and I support you in your return to yourself today. So ask yourself right now, what lights you up when no one's watching? When you don't have the little eyes watching, when your dog isn't watching, when your husband or your friends or a mom or, carpool moms or whoever it is, when no one's watching, when no one is thinking and judging and saying anything, what lights you up? And what is that thing for you, knowing that you don't need approval, you don't need applause, you don't need permission? It's what lights you up because it feels like truth, because it resounds so deeply in your soul. What is that thing? Who are you when you are not performing, providing, or even producing? Because typically all of our roles fall within those categories: performing, providing, producing. What are your core values? What are the things that you live by? What are the things that you craft your world by? And not just the things that you say. Like we can say, oh yeah, I believe in this, or oh yeah, I believe in that, or whatever. But if we go and do the opposite thing all the time, then it really isn't a core value, right? What are your quiet desires? Your natural curiosities? What are the things that you just kind of get lost in and have fun with? For me right now, it's shelling. You guys know I love the beach. I always have. I have felt deeply at home in the ocean, near the ocean, by the ocean, whatever. My name actually means of the sea or by the sea, Marissa, the name Marissa. And I always told my mom that it was so fitting because I truly feel at home when I'm by the ocean. And I always say I was a mermaid. Like I was a mermaid in a past life. I was a mermaid in another world, wherever the mermaids are or wherever they're from. I know I was one, okay? And so that is something that just truly lights me up. It lights me up to be near the ocean. I feel at home. I feel most myself. I feel playful. I feel giddy inside. I feel like time stops and everything stands still. I could be there for 18 days and it would feel like 1 minute. You know what I mean? That is the type of thing I'm talking about when I say what lights you up. And I'm not saying like what lights you up and you're going to get paid for it, or what lights you up and you're going to whatever. Maybe it's coloring, maybe it's reading, maybe it is playing an instrument, maybe it is being in a garden with flowers. You know what I mean? Like really get into the root of what lights you up. Your natural curiosities and natural things you're interested in, your inner rhythms. Are you in tune with your own inner rhythm of what the inner beat of who you are, and sensing the rhythm of when you are comfortable, when you are not, all of those things? Answer those questions for you. Maybe go back, write them in a journal, write them down in a notebook or something, or in your notes in your phone, and reflect on them after, or if you can't think of something, or maybe something's popping immediately into your head right now. But when you do that, think back to a time when you felt the most yourself. What were you doing? Where were you? How did it feel? Were you alone? Were you with other people? Were you laughing? What time of year was it? What were you doing? How did it feel to just fully exist in that moment and to really feel the full expression of who you are in your own essence, in your own energy? That is identity. It's not what you do for others, but it's who you are within yourself. Not your productivity, but your presence to you. Not what you are known for, but what feels like home in your soul when you feel most at home within your own body. When you remember that moment or moments, you don't have to try to go back and search for who you are. When you can return to those moments, more of who you are will be uncovered. More of who you are will come out and be expressed. It will start to feel more natural to express yourself and operate in your own identity and even do those things and those activities that make you feel alive. You'll start to prioritize them. You'll start to make time for them because you realize how important who you are and feeding your essence is. So think of it this way. Think of yourself like a plant, a beautiful flowering plant. If you are not watering it, then it's going to be dead, dull, shriveled up, wilting, brown, whatever, right? But if you are watering it, if you are giving it sunlight, if you are giving it, the miracle grow food it needs, whatever, then its true essence is going to shine. The colors are going to come out. It is going to bloom. It is going to be full and beautiful and flowering, and new bulbs are going to pop up and new growth is going to come. You are the same way. When you feed the essence of you, your beauty is able to shine. Your identity is able to come out. The fullness of who you are is able to be seen because it is expressed. It is expressed and it is out there and everyone can see it. But that doesn't happen if you're not feeding it. So as you move through your day today and your next week and the weeks to come and the months and this summer season and even into the fall and the winter, I want to invite you as well as challenge you to return to who you are. Return to the essence that makes you you. Find one of those things that lights you up. Go back to that thing. Do it once this week. Look at your calendar, carve out a little bit of time. If it's a half hour, if it's an hour, if it's 10 minutes, whatever it is. Put it on your calendar for this next week to make time for it. Maybe it's as simple as going and sitting outside in the grass and staring at the flowers in your garden. If that's what lights you up, then I want you to make time to do that. If you love going to a coffee shop, if you love going to a certain type of workout class, if you love getting coffee with a friend, I don't know what it is, whatever it is that lights you up, there could be 900 million things. Going to the library, you guys, that is something that lights my inner child up. And I recently thought about this actually a couple weeks ago because at the beginning of every summer, I always was so excited because our mom would take us to the library like once a week and we would get a ton of books. And you guys, I would walk out with, no lie, probably 15 or 20 books, okay? I loved going to the library and finding a new book. I was really into Nancy Drew and all of those series books. And there was like 60 or 70 Nancy Drew books. So I remember reading them all one summer. But I would come out with a stack of books so high that I could barely walk them to the car. And you know what? I would read those books within 3 days. And I'd be like, Mom, can we go back to the library? And she's like, we just went. What are you talking about? But it was so enjoyable for me. It lit me up to just blow through these books in the summer and read. And I remember I would sit on the couch and I would be outside and I would lay in the grass and I would have my books and I would read. And it was so natural and truly lit me up. I just would get lost in that. And that's something that is like the essence of who I am. I love to read. I'm a book reader. That's not a role, you guys. That's not a title. That's just something that lights me up. It's not going to give me $1 bajillion, and who cares? It's me. What is that for you? What is that for you? Maybe you have to return back to a moment of your childhood, or a moment that is sending you back. That inner child needs to come out and really be fully expressed for you to get down to your true essence. I invite you to do that today. I invite and encourage you to do that today. You are more than your job. You are more than your relationship. You are more than the role of whatever it is that you play. You are more than the labels. You are more than the output. You are more than your achievements. All of those things may describe you, but they do not define you. When the titles fade away or are forgotten, when the roles shift, when all of the doing pauses, you are still whole. Your worth is inherent. It is inherently in you as a human being. Your identity lives in your presence. And no matter what you carry or what you create, you are still you. So, as you move through the day and you move through your week, I invite you to come back to the deeper place of you. If you have been defining yourself by what you do, who you care for, or how well you show up in your roles, let this entire episode and this moment be your reminder. You are more than your responsibilities. You are so much more than your output, more than any title the world could possibly give you. Your identity lives in your essence. It's who you are when everything else fades away. And she has always been there, even in the quiet moments, even in the forgotten moments. You don't have to earn your worth. You already are. Thank you for sharing this space with me today, for listening to this episode, and for diving into the hard work of returning to who we are. It's really not easy to do that sometimes when we're in a world that's defined by so much performance. But I promise you that there is a beauty in knowing your true essence, and it is worth the work of uncovering the layers, even if there's a million of layers. Little bits, day by day, return to that essence. If this episode spoke to you or even sparked something in you, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear about it. Send me a message, send me an email, and share this episode with somebody else too who may need to hear it, who may be in a tough place in their life in a transition of roles, or maybe someone who is really so ingrained in their roles and needs a return to their essence. And until next time, I will leave you with this little nugget for today. Come home to who you are, and not just who you've been for others. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Behind the Cusp. If you love this episode, I'd so appreciate it if you'd rate, review, or share it with someone else who's also on their path of self-growth. These all go such a long way in supporting the show. Be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find me over on Instagram @StyleCusp and follow the show Behind the Cusp. And as always, keep tuning inward. True transformation begins from the inside out.